Hi everyone and welcome back. I hope you're doing really well. I'm just coming on today very productively. I hope you're having a very productive November of 2021. I'm coming on to make a different kind of video today, whereas we will be talking a little bit about astrology as a side note in this video. I'm taking this particular video from more of a global dynamic perspective, and I'm going to be talking about finishing the year of 2021. I thought that we needed to have a video specifically about comprehending the last little segment of 2021 here. I am mainly talking about the end of 2021 year cycle in the astrological sense, so from about Scorpio season until Pisces season. But also this would definitely be clear for the calendar sense as well, so from November until January 1st, 2021. But I'm coming from this from around January until middle March. For those of you who don't know, that's the end of the astrological year and the beginning of the astrological year when Aries season kicks off. So that's what I'm going to be aiming this video at, as we are going to be having a big distinct shift actually in February as we go into the cusp period between this year cycle and the next. And it's going to basically kind of fit pretty evenly with the calendar year this year, in the sense that, yes, maybe the first half of January will still feel quite familiar, though once we get to the end of January and move into February, I do feel that many of us are going to feel as if our lifestyles, our lifelines, our way of navigating our experience has drastically changed. Okay? And I feel at this point in time we can see that in a relieving way, though we really do have to work hard, almost with like an itinerary or with a very deliberate, very clearly defined method of transition. Because without clear, defined terms for this transition coming by the end of this year, I think that it's very messy for a lot of people, and that should already be very visible coming into this, okay? So I'm filming this video during the new moon in Scorpio. As I'm coming to you, the moon has just gone new in Scorpio. I will link below the new moon in Scorpio video, and in the top right hand corner, it's a good little video for thinking about the astrological perspective that's motivating this video. This one, okay? I'm just really excited. I really have a great outline prepared for you all today, and I'm going to be talking in 4 chapters, okay, which these should be time-stamped below. But primarily, I'm just going to do a stream of consciousness about how I feel the preceding part of 2021 year cycle has gotten us. Then I'm going to have 3 chapters about specific things that I think we need to be thinking about right now, and things that are really creating a lot of momentum that we can do better if we think with foresight about. Okay, so primarily, stream of consciousness. Okay, 2021 year cycle. I don't think that we realize the progress that we've actually made. It's very likely that we have been putting nose to the grindstone, really busy, really productive, really factory-like. For those of you who've been on Patreon, I've been talking in some of the extended readings and in T-chats about the factory nature of this year, and it's kind of like we have this new relationship with repetition, with patterns, with production and output. And I don't think that it's healthy for most people. Some people have gotten it right, but it's kind of like an 80-20 split. So like 80% of people are having a negative experience of production and output. And then there are about really 20% of people, which is quite good, who are getting into a nice sweet spot between like how much they want to work, how much they want to productively output, and how much time they want for the freedom of their own experience. I would like to see this growing between now and the end of the 2021 year cycle. So starting to find your sweet point a little bit more about how much you can really do for someone else, about what your duties to another person are, or to a company, or to some type of labor movement or something. I do feel, we have great resignation and all those big movements happening now, and it really makes sense. Because what I came to discover very recently was that a lot of production and a lot of factories were existing for the sake of production and not for the sake of providing. Okay. And when that's the case, it's basically going to be producing into oblivion, and people are going to hate what they get and they're going to throw it all away. And it creates this terrible cycle, not just for consumers, but also for the environment and for, yes, consumers as well. As I see that a lot of the food and a lot of the things being produced right now, clothing, food, everything, it's real, the quality is really getting to a point, and I think that we can't really be okay with it, like the quality of a lot of produced food, the quality of a lot of produced clothes. And if you are someone who maybe I don't know, works in these production places in an executive capacity, if you have a company that creates clothing, if you have a company that is somehow involved in like facilitation of food production, I really think that there could be big problems, not just when it comes to like ratings or revenues, but actually when it comes to maybe to like legalities and things like that in the future, if we cannot up the quality of what we're creating. Okay. And that's not in any way trying to be like shady, but it is something that we really need to think about. And I think that a lot of people really have to get a stake in their own creative process, and so that they can have better things in their lives, because the constant consumption component of popular culture right now is leading people to buy so much stuff that they don't need, and they just throw it away. And it's just like, what is the purpose of a lot of this? And I think that so many people are also considering like, okay, so I'm working to like create all these things for someone else, and then the people that buy it don't even like it, and then it's like harming the environment. It's really a destructive cycle that we need to think about in our own lives. So bringing this back down to an independent place, like as someone who is purchasing things, as someone who is involved in it from the other side, I feel that a big part of 2021 has been trying to show us like why we are choosing to proliferate these types of things. And, you know, seeing economically with so much inflation and so much push in that way, it's kind of like, it's pretty scary to see how much it's supported, you know, how much it's supported, because there really aren't other alternatives. I mean, it kind of seems like it's just very difficult to get healthy food. It's very difficult to get reasonably priced clothing, or that is of any type of quality. It's like it doesn't matter where you're buying from. I'm not meaning for this conversation to really devolve into any type of economic or political discussion, but the main thing that I want to talk about as it relates to like concepts on this channel and, you know, getting ourselves healthier is coming in really into a new relationship with necessity, and coming into a new relationship with lifestyle. For any of you creative entrepreneurs out there, what an incredible time it would be to start creating something of quality and to really put that together. How awesome that would be. And relating this again to stream of consciousness, finishing the year cycle of 2021, basically, you know, disruptions in the supply chain, many other economic factors are really challenging the current systems. And if you guys remember my ending video for 2020, I made a video called As 2020 Ends. I was really seeing, as that, you know, triple Capricorn conjunction faded out, that yes, old outworn structures were going to totally just like have a hard time. If not, you know, it was not going to be easy. But I just really have to prepare everyone here that once we get to the 2022 year cycle, okay, there's going to be a strange kind of like Goldilocks zone energetically for a lot of people, and we're not going to realize really what's going on in 2022, because especially if you have like, I don't know, a lot of reliance on very mainstream, very status quo businesses or institutions, you know, for your basic needs, okay? If one is not that self-sustained, it's going to be okay through 2022, okay? There's not going to be much like, I'm not saying that there's like emergency, like apocalyptic situations. I don't feel that for 2022 at all. 2023 and especially 2024, I mean, that's getting into a whole other territory, but not what this video is about. But what I'm saying is that basically will be enabled by a certain distraction in 2022 or certain reliances that are being forged now. So as this relates to finishing 2021, basically you can see this as kind of like a harness or as a, like when you're rock climbing or when you're I don't know, skydiving or something, you have these harnesses, you have all this infrastructure in your body that keeps you from like plummeting to your death, right? That is what 2021 creates. 2021 creates safe infrastructure. That is the point. And infrastructure is a pretty hot topic keyword right now, isn't it? The 2021 year cycle, because it is a year of the ox, right? Is about the creation of infrastructure. So you can really think of it like, would I free climb or would I maybe like, strap myself to a harness before I climb that vertical wall? 2022 is going to actually be getting us like higher on that wall and even all the way up to like 2024. Like it's like climbing, but we're choosing in 2021 whether we want that harness on or not. So how imperative this last chapter of 2021 is going to be, because by the time we hit February and March of 2022, we're actually kind of like energetically starting to get to a height, okay, where we would want to have a harness on, okay? So I definitely recommend, just again at a stream of consciousness level, at an intuitive level, to focus a lot of your resources and energy in late 2021, like all the way up until February and March of 2022, actually, in safety infrastructure in your life. So this could look like insurances. This could look like a lot of review. This could look like an ounce of prevention is worth, I don't know, 7 million pounds of whatever that saying is, like prevention being the key word. It's better to prevent than it is to deal with a crisis. Okay, so we are kind of in crisis prevention mode right now, and you'd be surprised like how much people with the means to create change could prevent a lot of crisis right here, right now. Okay, it's not going to really be that way after this point in time. So I really am hoping for, personally, just in all of our lives, that we can start to focus on the way that we can introduce safety. And I kind of feel like that most people here listening to this channel, as I've been talking around this all this year, we've been working so hard. I certainly have been, trying to really get a lot of things in my life in order and trying to really get a good structural foundation. But it's not really been easy. I've noticed something about it has not been totally possible, and it's been frustrating to me how certain expert professions as well are unwilling to really help people or have really no stake in the well-being of other people. Of course, that's not everyone, but I've noticed in like a lot of mainstream professions that there's a very like separatist tendency actually in some of these people where there's really a complete detachment from the well-being of those who they are basically, or have signed up to serve by choosing the paths that they chose many years ago. So I'm not singling anyone out here. I'm not singling out any profession. But if you are someone who is like some type of like high-ranking professional, like a doctor, a lawyer, a realtor, a psychologist, any of these kind of like tried and true status professions, if you have integrity, if you really want to help people, how incredible it could be to really cement that now. So if you've been wanting to, I don't know, go to law school or go to get your medical degree or something, I think that's an incredible path to be on. But I feel that if we're going into these fields, we have to be prepared to help people and to not just help our bank accounts, because I'm seeing right now, after we came past that triple Capricorn conjunction, I'm just really seeing a lot of people who never really cared that much about helping people, or there's a chip on the shoulder about it, and this is going to become a huge societal problem. I'm just going to say, like, between now and 2024, we could see and like here's the thing is it damages everyone there, like the people who are really in those positions to do well, like the few and far between people who are talented and capable and are there to help the people that their profession exists for, and not just focused on the bank account component, or not just focused on the status component. Those people could be negatively affected by the other people who have the opposite predisposition in their fields. So we have kind of a crisis also where I see people taking stuff into their own hands and refusing to like really work with professionals too. And then that's going to create all kinds of like chaos to a degree. So I'm just trying to understand what this means in the context of the end of 2021. Thinking about these sort of societal diagnoses. I think first and foremost, we have to really examine why we have committed to what we've committed to. Because basically, people who are struggling to be integrity based in their professions or in their roles in some way have been wronged in those roles, or in some way have been betrayed by their commitment. There's always a betrayal in the equation when someone is causing pain or difficulty unto other people. So, firstly, we almost have to embrace more kindness and happiness, I think, at a societal level, regardless of a lot of these other societal components, in order to heal it. Like, I've got to say, it's really difficult because if we're eating like bad food and chemically infused food, and we can't get any help from anywhere, how is happiness a part of that equation? Well, it's got to come from inside, doesn't it? That's what's tricky also about the oncoming year of 2022, is there's no one who's gonna like do it for you. Okay, and I've got to really prepare you all for this. Like, I keep saying this, but it's like, it's not going to really come from the outside. Like, if you've said, okay, I want to do this with my life, I want to move into this territory, I want to realize my purpose, self-actualize, you would be best to let that be an interior process for now until you've really arrived. What do I mean by this? This is hard to articulate. I've got to tell you guys, I've seen some people who have like announced to the world, I want to do this, and like really been open with their dreams just to attract detractors, just to attract haters, just to attract subversion because of their openness and honesty about what they wanted to do. And that is very sad. So it's almost like reworking our formula, where we have to let it be a more self-based experience. Like, we have to maybe have a more refined group of friends or family in a way so that we trust ourselves with our dreams, and we're not so impacted or affected by the opinions of other people about that. And we also have to trust our natural evolution as well. It's like some people have basically if you can imagine a caterpillar going to a cocoon, going to a butterfly. Can you imagine like a caterpillar announcing to the world that it's going to eventually someday be a butterfly, and kind of relying on other external opinions to support that process? It's going to happen naturally, okay? It's going to be a natural part of life evolution. But what I'm seeing at a societal level, this is an allegory for society, where a lot of people will prolong their caterpillar phases or will not move up in their evolutionary spiral just because they've not been supported by external places. So we have kind of like a shutting down, basically. And this has to do with the relationship with technology. I'm going to talk about that further ahead in the video because it's an important chapter an important aspect of this time. But almost because of our relationship to technology, where we have this like a fake relationship with devices. Like, just imagine the amount of time we've looked at our phone screens. Just imagine how if we didn't even have those phones in our lives, how a lot of people would basically like just take like, I don't know, put 20 people in the same room and remove their phones and see what the social dynamic would be. They would like basically walk around in circles and not be able to like connect with one another. It's terrifying, really, to think about. And what does that really mean at a macrocosmic level? What does it mean when we have a global dynamic of like so many billions of people who would basically put together, roam around in circles? It's like really confounding. And that's why all this confusion is here, not just from technology. I mean, technology can be a great thing, but this is us choosing, right? This is us choosing to develop relationships with our technology instead of with other people. And maybe we're not wrong. I mean, I've got to say, when we were going through like 2012 through 2016, a lot of us had such catastrophic interpersonal relationships that we have created self-fulfilling prophecies that deal with isolation and relationships with technology. What a powerful place that puts technology into, right? And then we're getting into a lot of other social media conversations there too. But what I will say, in relation to finishing the last few chapters of 2021, it might be very important to remember yourself inside of your experience instead of, constantly scrolling through Instagram, constantly scrolling through YouTube. And to think about the shape of your body as well. When I'm thinking about this feeling of harnesses, when I'm thinking about this feeling of protection, it requires measurements, right? There's got to be some shape that these harnesses are fulfilling or going around. Also, if I think of clothing as well, things that protect us from the elements, our houses, our infrastructure, right? That is what this year cycle is mainly about. And we, at a physical and energetic level, have to maintain a certain shape and basically sizing of our, and I'm not just talking the physical body, I'm talking energetically, in order to fit our infrastructure as well. We've outgrown it, but also, is that really right? Maybe we need to think about how we fit better into our context. So with this, yes, I'm seeing better branding for business owners. I'm seeing better styles, better colors for what we wear, what we exude. And I'm not talking about that at a level of like style. Style's great, but I'm talking about what really evokes us. I'm seeing before this time, like before November 2021, a lot of loss of a personal sense of style, or a lot of loss of a personal sense of projection, which is not, it's neither here nor there why that happened, but I did really see it. And that was because of, the pandemic and everything. It caused us to go within, and when fourth house energy gets too overstressed, like we lose shape, right? We do not have a lot of definition in our lives sometimes because of that. And what I'm basically seeing for the last bit of 2021 is a very, almost for some people, like imperative need to cut back a lot of overgrowth. Okay, so we have the maybe ingestion of things that are terrible for us that we have to cut out here. We have to maybe detox, how great that would be, especially because we're in Scorpio season, right? And it has to really be combined with a lot, though. This has to be a holistic well-being. So this is, I talk on this channel about about how fad diets are never the way to go. But this isn't about just a change in diet. This isn't about just like starting to do cardio. This isn't about anything little. This has to be holistic. Okay, so I recommend going to the journal and spending 3 or 4 hours even in a very happy space, thinking, like, I don't know whether these are messages from our spirit guides, from God, from the universe, however you like to perceive that, about what we really need to live a good life, because this is the genius that comes through, that channels through us during year cycles like this. We have a very clear download about self. It's one of the most self-focused years in a 12-year cycle, to the degree that we can really actualize and have a transparent view into, what's my purpose, all that stuff, So how nice it would be to sit with that and to know it, and to understand also how it's really accomplished. Like, are there some things that are overwhelming to us now that we don't need anymore? Is there a better way to express what we're expressing? And do we fit into the reality we've created for ourselves? Does it fit us? Are things fitting here? Because it's very clear to see also what was not right or what was not necessary. And it's not about just destroying it. It's not about throwing stuff away at this point in time either. We've come past that point, so we can't just throw stuff away at this point in time. At a holistic level, like, there are excess things that we can get rid of, but when it comes to like what we do for a living, when it comes to certain goals, when it comes to where we live, this stuff is very difficult even at this point in time to just do away with. So now we have to really make it right for us and make it fit better. And to conclude the stream of consciousness section of this video, thriving and making the choices that we've needed to make, instilling the health that we've holistically needed in our lives in this last part of 2021 is going to deal with the acceptance of what we would have previously thought was a bit of a tough reality, or a tough question. I'm going to tell you all right now, it's not very easy what it takes to really get this together depending on our mind, depending on how we like to think about themes of like ease or difficulty. And the best thing that we can do is to make realistic goals and to create schedules and itineraries that result in the realization of them, and also realize what we've overtaken or what we've taken on that's overly difficult as well. Basically, so we can learn about the creation of like really healthy goals that are perhaps a bit more incremental too. And it's like at this point in time, there's a lot of swirling autonomous components. What do I mean by this? A lot of us don't just have that one thing that we're doing anymore. You know, a lot of us have had to take on a lot of seemingly unconnected things in order to get by and in order to try to work with these global dynamics. So having to have multiple jobs, having to have multiple undertakings, having to have an entrepreneurial spirit. As I feel, you guys, entrepreneur means different things to different people, but what that word means in French is undertaker. And everybody needs, to some degree, an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm not saying you need to like make businesses. I'm not saying that you need to like have a lot of different businesses or something, as a lot of people think that's what an entrepreneur is. But in order to work with this oncoming time, okay, we have got to develop an entrepreneurial spirit of sorts, okay? And yes, otherwise there's a feeling of being crushed by stagnant, outworn systems that are no longer inviting. So entrepreneurial spirit just means to me that we have to really have an eye on where value is. And certainly there are, you know, ethics with that, of course, too, because I understand that that might be a controversial term for some people right now. But we have to be able to find value, we have to be able to create value, and we have to be able to provide, right? Because that's really what an entrepreneur does. They find value, they create value, and then they also provide. So it can't just be about finding value. It can't also just be about providing either. There has to be a hybrid between those two things. And whether that's just in like the jobs that you seek, whether that's in finding the best places to live, try to think a bit more entrepreneurially instead of just in a linear or consumer-based way, okay? And that's going to be one of the main imperatives on being self-sufficient and being prosperous in the coming time. Okay, so that's going to conclude my stream of consciousness part. So concluding the last steps of 2021 is really about developing a little bit more of a flexible undertaker type of vibe with how we are going to be moving forward. Okay, so I talked a long time about that. We're almost a half an hour in, but yes, I have 3 topics that we're going to be talking about now. Let's start the first one about global dynamics in the last bit of 2021. Okay, so I have written inflation, inflammation, and integration. 3 I's. That sounds so funny. So this is going to be a little bit economic. Yes, inflation. That's going to keep up. That's not going to stop. It's going to keep going wild. So what that means to me, and that the fact that this is happening to some degree globally, but especially, you know, here in the U.S., it means to me that the universe does not really like how much we've equated money spending or purchasing with a sense of well-being. So so those prices are going up. Those the idea of money being valuable is going down to kind of only from a spiritual perspective. That says to me that society is too monetarily focused. So basically the universe is stepping in and taking certain things by price out of reach for people so that they have to find other sources of value in their lives. That's one aspect of it. And also it is, to me, also highlighting the overstimulated aspect of a lot of people, where impulse or just random feelings are leading people to like buy, or leading people to, I don't know, swipe their credit cards. And this is also inflating the economy. I feel that this is directly tied to social media and technology, where all the notifications that we get, all of the random ADD incentivizing of social media programming, okay, is causing our brains to jump so far over the place. And also this is relating to our money as well, where because almost like we get a notification from Facebook and then YouTube and then Twitter, and like, where's our brain even at? Because we've seen like 17 different topics from I don't know, politics to spirituality to I don't know, DIY projects to luxury clothing items to school to new types of cleaning products, 17 different brands for organic cleaning products versus the 427 other mainstream brands of chemically based. You know how it's like, no wonder we're spending so much money in so many places we don't even know, because our brain is like now operating this way, where it's like from one store to the next store to this store to that store, forgetting stuff, buying stuff over here, buying stuff there, buying stuff, and this is inflating the economy too. And of course, there are institutional, right, components to inflation, which, you know, that's kind of beyond the context of this video. But what I will say is that there is an interest in inflation. Okay, there is an interest in inflation is a good thing at a global economic level, because it decreases the value of debt and we have a debt crisis. So as inflation happens, the concept of a high debt also decreases, right? So if we're 100 billion trillion zillion dollars in debt, as inflation goes up, as the money supply is worth less, that amount of debt is concurrent with that, right? So our comprehension of what it means to have such a high level of debt also decreases. So that's a lot of the global dynamic of why inflation is in the interest of institutions or people who are in huge levels of debt, or who have used debt to, in their minds, create wealth. And I would say that this is not just monetary, this is emotional as well, as I see people going into all kinds of emotional debt, energetic debt, to seemingly create what they consider to be abundance and wealth in their lives. Like, as someone goes through a breakup, they're like, okay, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to own up to my side of this. I'm not going to face that problem. I'm going to pretend that that didn't exist, and I'm going to go dating now. Okay? I'm going to have a rebound and essentially go into emotional debt to purvey to myself that I have somehow overcome a previous relationship and now flood my whole body with dopamine by dating some like completely crazy person that I somehow think can be like, in my experience, in a positive way. But even like, I am a big, see, I'm jumping around as well right now, but I am a big proponent of a gap period of time after a breakup. The brain really has to reprogram itself to the self. So I'll let you know right now that rebound dating, dating right after a breakup, even just being like in too many group contexts right after a breakup, like talking to too many people, being surrounded by people all the time, these can really prevent us from having the healing of brain and psyche that we need. Because when we go from being in a relationship to being in a single again, it really changes the chemical structure of the body big time. And a lot of people have withdrawals, right? And that's why a lot of people try to rebound, or they try to go on a dating spree. But that's debt. It's emotional debt. It's psychic debt. So if one has a tumultuous, traumatic breakup, and then 3 days later they're dating, okay, can you imagine the context of that karmic debt and experience? And why this is coming up in the inflamation integration chapter is because it's kind of similar with like the economy. So I don't have any money, I don't have any income, but let me go and live above my means. Let me go and supplement and ration that. And there are some cases where it's like you have to, right? Like, I'm not so much speaking about people experiencing abject poverty. I'm speaking about frivolous spending, and what it basically results in, right, is like basically gathering a lot of things you never needed. So now we have a lot of clothes we hate. Now we have a lot of furniture, or a lot of I don't know, meals that we never needed. Okay, and that can lead to like health problems, you know, whether it's like a weight gain, or whether it's an autoimmune disease because of the food. You have to kind of understand it's a spiral. It's a spiral. When we make these choices to deprive ourselves of loss, okay? We've experienced loss, we've had the breakup, we've lost something, but rather than facing that, we acquire, okay? We go dating, we buy stuff. And this deprives us of what really can be the beautiful experience of, I'm not even going to call it loss. I'm going to call it an incentive from the universe to be with ourselves for some time. And that's always what a breakup or a loss of job or anything like that is indicating at a spiritual level. And I will basically say that all of this inflation, all of these monetary problems that we're having now exist from a micro to macro level aversion to facing the truth of a situation, to facing the self, and basically rebounding in multiple ways, whether that's dating, whether that's spending, whether that's false illusions of grandeur, false illusions of security as well. That's a big thing. So, existing in this system, existing in a system that's going to inflate a lot more than it already is, 2022 is not going to get that under control. Like, it's going to gradually increase. And then, yes, around 23 and 24, there may be big sort of economic shifts that might scale it down, hopefully. But that's to be determined. 2022, it's going to keep inflating. So yes, we maybe have to find new sources of entertainment, anything that's an unnecessary expense. Unless you're making like millions of dollars. Even people in very high incomes are struggling to get by at this point in time. Surprisingly, and a lot of people don't know that, but we have to cut some of the excess, right? We have to cut some of the pork. We have to also start creating things of value, and maybe it's kind of a controversial issue, but everybody has something valuable to create, and how rewarding it is to solve some of the monetary aspects of energy experience by having created something. Okay, it's very rewarding. It can be a can of worms. It can be a Pandora's box, I can tell you, but it's also very rewarding. And at this point in time, one of the high points, okay, of this last bit of the 2021 year cycle is we can really see how to live a very safe and protected life that is conducive to living. So not conducive just to working, not conducive just to being of service for another person, not conducive of just struggling, but really conducive of living through a nice balance between, infrastructure and happiness. Okay, that's what this year cycle is. The highest pinnacle vibration of this year cycle is that combination between safety and happiness. Okay, either one of those can get out of control, though. If we're just focused on happiness and just focused on fulfilling what makes us feel good, that can be like a drug addiction, right? It just feels so good. Why wouldn't I do it? That's how people can be when just only good feelings are the only thing that matters. Also, when only safety is the only thing that matters, that's when you get into tyrannies, right? And arduous levels of regulation that nobody can even hope to ever even understand. And nobody even tries to involve themselves in anything because they're so terrified of putting a foot wrong, or they don't even want to be a part of any type of system. Okay, so that's the danger of the over-focused safety component. But what we really can get here is balance, regulations that work, okay? Things that feel good, that are good for you. How beautiful to think of things like that. Isn't that just something that sounds awesome, to live in a world where regulations are refined and serve a good purpose and work, and then also things that feel good could contribute to our health? I really think it's a good place for us to journal. So what I've just said, if you want to do a prompt, if you want to just sit and think about it, what could feel good in my life that could also be a really well-functioning, safe thing for me? How could I engage in the systems that work in a way that is conducive to my happiness and also to like my mobility and freedom. Okay, it's really, really good to think that, because those answers are going to be here in 2022, and I just love that. Okay, so I have inflation, inflammation, and integration. So inflammation, right? That's also a part of inflation. Okay, there has to be an overstimulated, kind of inflamed feeling, like, ooh, it's like burning out. It's like, the factory's working at mass production. The mind is moving so fast, and then there's like inflation. So I would challenge us all to look at inflammation in our own bodies. Okay, acidic diets, non-alkaline diets, fast food, fried food, sugar, dairy. It's like all that any of us eat, it seems like. And yes, we're getting back to like food production and stuff there. And I'm not an expert in that field, but I know that it's not great because, I mean, look at what's available, but there are still ways, right? I mean, apple cider vinegar, lemon, we talk all about that. But anything, I mean, I think that now's even a good time to work with like holistic health practitioners, which I am not one. So consult your own doctor or your own health professionals to understand what might work for you. But I think that there could be a lot of rewards by pursuing a less inflammatory experience over these next coming months. And then the integration side of it, right? So I feel that a lot of us are pretty unintegrated. Like we might have businesses that don't fit us anymore. We might have jobs that were once right for us, but not right anymore. And then we might also have like even mantras or lifestyles or philosophies that just don't fit. So there's going to have to be an eventual rebranding, or there's going to have to be an eventual update, right? And it's been queued for a long time. I think we've been working on it bit by bit here through this year. But eventually that integration is going to have to happen. So I think it's good to think about that over this oncoming time, is just like, how can we better integrate? How can we be integrated? Like, what does the word integration mean to you? And do you feel that you're getting there? What could be done? You'd be surprised about the clarity that can come through in regards to integration and how much that can help, because that's also right why we're having these economic difficulties, is because there's some kind of lack of integration. Something about maybe the corporate structure is totally non-integrated with, like, helping. Again, it's there to produce, it's not there to provide. So yeah, like that integration in that case would be like creating a providing orientation instead of just a producing orientation. Okay, and that's not just like business. That's like a lot of aspects of life. Okay, next chapter. Let's move on here. I'm just gonna write down my timestamp here. I have written down, that pen's not working. I have written down compartmentalization chaos. Okay, wow. So this is kind of non-integration again, right? Like I feel like so many of us have compartmentalized. Like we have these different things going on. This has to do with the North Node in Gemini, and that's about to change. So we have these double lives. We have these crises of two-mindedness. We have polarities in our lives that we cannot seemingly integrate. And this is as a result of emotional compartmentalization. So I would recommend doing a little bit of an identity study on yourself. Like this is where looking back through old photos and old journals and talking to people you haven't talked to in a long time can be really helpful, because I feel that we've compartmentalized certain aspects of ourselves and we might not be getting the benefit of certain components or parts of us that we don't remember anymore. There's kind of a forgetting. Through this compartmentalization, there's a struggle in circulation or a struggle in blood flow that has led to certain energetic aspects of ourselves to kind of step off or fade away. And we've got to really do some work on the over compartmentalization. And it can be a helpful thing sometimes. Sometimes we have to compartmentalize to survive. But I do want you to know, like, if you've been maybe compartmentalizing too much, it is usually a sign that you're in some kind of survival mode. Like, I'm afraid that if I exist in my totality, that this could threaten me in some way. And that just leads us to create all kinds of structures that we never had to in order to prolong these compartments, okay? And once we have this nodal shift in, again, late January, okay, it has to have some type of resolution, or even by then it would be good to have fixed some of this stuff. But, I hesitate to really try to stamp dates or like deadlines on certain identity crisis or psychological chapters of the life. That can in and of itself become a negative thing. But at some point in time, we also have to have those progresses, right? Sometimes we have to set the deadline, otherwise we just never do it. Then also sometimes we get too deadline oriented and compartmentalized, and then it's just chaos. So balance, right? We are learning so much through experiencing so many different aspects of life right now that we almost have grown fond of a person who never has to really choose, or a person who is in a constant deliberation or in a constant, because that's a powerful place. Like when you, it's kind of like the Lover's card in tarot, where you've got this like crossroads, but you're standing at it. You've not chosen a path yet. And it's very powerful because you're choosing basically how life is going to be for yourself by what path you go on. But once we've committed to a path, then that's not feeling so powerful anymore sometimes because we're on it now. So I will say that many of us are having that lover's archetype experience where we're like, I just kind of want to stagnate at the crossroads because I like the feeling of knowing that I have the authority of choice, but that I have not yet chosen. And that's something that is going to stop feeling like an authority, and it's going to start feeling in a way confining if we can't commit to certain paths by this nodal shift in January. And I think that compartmentalization plays a big role in that, because we kind of compartmentalize certain aspects of ourselves that are like, but what about what we're here for? What about what our purpose is? What about the things we actually have to like kind of get on and get doing? And then there's this kind of other compartment that's like, but it's a very safe and powerful feeling to be in this choice-making place. And that becomes like a battle. So moving on, the third and final chapter or theme I have written down here is experiencing acceptance and completion as a relief. Okay, and I feel that this is quite important. We talk a lot about these words, I think, in the spiritual community, like acceptance, completion, final moments, closure. And boy, do we have some of that coming up here and now. Some of us are really stretching it out. I feel like at this point in time, we might know that a certain process is coming to a close, that a certain chapter is coming to a close, and so many of us are following that right up with an incredibly soul-driven, authentic, and integrity-based path. But in order to give that to ourselves, we have to really accept where we've been and what it was, and in some ways re-identify it for ourselves. So this does to me look like new spins on acceptance, new spins on healthier mindsets, and basically like new levels of creativity because of less perceived scarcity. So in a place of scarcity, in a place of fear, we oftentimes will not allow completion. We'll deprive ourselves of completion and acceptance and prolong, what's getting us by, what's working. So we have to maybe suspend disbelief and ask ourselves, if money wasn't an issue, where would I be right now? If I had $10 million deposited into my bank account, how would that change my day-to-day life? Would I buy a mansion and spend all that real quick? You'd be surprised how quickly it would go for a lot of people. Or would I just take a breather? Would I become an investor? Would I don't know, create something that would in my mind change the world in a better way? I think it's a really good exercise right now to think about what you would do, because money seems to be such a center point for so many people right now. So I've really got to say the only answer to that must be really consciously thinking about what you would do if it wasn't. Maybe this is kind of in a way the theme of money, inflation, economics, careers, right? Jobs, businesses, entrepreneurism. none of it should really be just about money, because then it's like we're committing our lives to an illusion. So we really have to contemplate, like, what would I be doing if money wasn't a construct? Because there's going to be so many changes, right? Like over the next decade, with things like cryptocurrency, with things like, different institutions, different structures, different regulations. It's going to, I just really have to invite everyone to try to transcend the construct of money as much as they can right now. Certainly it means so many different things to so many different people, and I don't even have time to talk that much more about it in this video, just money. But money's no longer an issue. Say, ooh, what an interesting concept. Say your bank account now says like infinity. It's no longer a concept anymore. What would you do? What would life be about? What would life be about like that, with an infinite balance? Because we don't know it, but we actually have that. By virtue of like having a semi-healthy, at least, body and like a beating heart, there's an infinite balance there. And a lot of us are denying that and depriving ourselves of that in order to work with numbers. So transcending the numbers game to a degree, because we can't totally leave it behind, but just for the sake of this exercise and for the sake of suspending disbelief, like I really invite you to maybe journal about this as well. Suspending disbelief, just within the confines of maybe 2 hours of journaling one day. I now have an infinite balance. What would I do in the next 5 years with that? In the next 10 years? At some point in time, after all the dopamine rushes of like buying houses or buying nice things or like purchasing, spending, would that eventually become unfulfilling? Would, I don't know, investing and like getting, I don't know, what's like dividends, would that eventually, am I just looking for my needs to be met? Am I like what would I then do? This is kind of a good exercise in understanding purpose, because once we get past money, there's some real truth about what purpose is. So some of us might think, oh, finally I can pursue my art career. Oh, finally I can do my music. Oh, finally I can do this or that. And the thing is, you can do that without the money component too. So that's why this exercise is really great, because we need to detach a little bit our purpose from the money thing in order to actually get on board with it. Again, it's a very temporal exercise, because there are real things. Like, it doesn't mean that we can just quit our jobs. It doesn't mean that we do not want to introduce poverty into our lives, and we have to really be prepared. But it kind of clears up some blocks when we think about, and it helps us to kind of heal from like unneeded attention on the construct of money. Because I can tell you all that even if it means like working a day job and then like doing what you're here to do by night or in the other hours, like, due to the way this world works right now, you will attract prosperity and abundance if you find your purpose, if you choose to create in the context of what you love. And it does sometimes take clarity to figure that out. There are pipe dreams. There are compensation grids. Okay, sometimes we think we want something because it compensates. But it's not always non-purposeful either, those things. And, beyond this, I will say that sustainability, right, becomes a huge word. Self-sustaining systems, passive income, all that stuff, yes, but really self-sustaining systems are the answer for a lot of people. And maybe it doesn't mean huge, like, salaries, huge amounts of, like frivolous amounts of abundance, but at some point in time, that is an illusion as well. So we have a lot of illusions to overcome, really, coming out of this last bit of 2021. A lot of truths about what we really need, about what really protects us, about what really safety is, and then also what happiness in a safe context looks like. So it's really for each individual person to come to their own conclusions about, because what we also don't need are singular, unitary, standardized forms of what happiness for one person is, or, through like, I don't dream of labor. That's the silliest thing for me. I see this permeating social media, this thing like, I don't dream of labor. Nobody dreams of labor. And if you think that a career in social media has transcended labor, you would be very mistaken. Okay, there is a lot of bondage in a social media career, but it's illusionary. What I will say though is it is very possible to find things that you really enjoy doing that are, would we say, like labors of love, or things that bring a good feeling when you do. Like if you're a runner, if you run marathons, that could seem laborious when you first start training, but then it becomes really, really nice and enjoyable. And it's certainly not the same type of labor as like certain jobs or certain things like that. So there is really a possibility during this year cycle, and as we're finishing up 2021, to really discover what that is, what we love, what we enjoy, and can it bring with it a monetary component. That doesn't mean it's never going to be laborious. That doesn't mean it's never going to be difficult, but there can be like a reward. There can be a nice feeling on account of it. Overall, everyone, so finishing these last chapters of 2021, I'll talk to you a little bit about awakening moments in 2022. So what I'm seeing basically, to give you a little preview of some of the stuff coming up in 2022, I'm seeing a lot of gratification. I'm seeing a lot of hard choices that do result in gratification by living up to commitments and living up to potential as well. That's a really high point of the 2022 year cycle. I'm also seeing a lot more body comfort. I'm seeing a lot more good shape and nice definition. But that's going to come through this phase that we're about to go in, these last chapters. Okay, so there can be huge amounts of discomfort in 2022 if we can't make the mature decision now, or if we can't prepare a mature resolution. It's more of a resolution now than it is a decision, because we have kind of a stuck point, or a what I want to say, it's like a stagnation, really, because it had to be, because things were having a certain momentum that led to things just having to kind of stretch out right now. But what we can do is, in the meantime, get our minds a little healthier, get our bodies a little healthier, get our psyches a little healthier, ourselves aligned with a schemata that has a sole purpose component and has a combination of safety and happiness. Okay, it really is perceptible, and it's not just perceptible, it's realizable. Okay, but we have to be in a healthy mindset. We have to be in a trusting point with Creator. We have to be in a certain level of calmness and acceptance and deliberation. And I really have to say ease with interpersonal relationships, because if we're having trauma-based relationships, if we're having fear, if we're having erraticism, constant chemicals coming into the body, dopamine rushing and then going away, love-hate relationships, polarity, it's never going to inspire a solid decision making. So here's a bit of a call to action right now to suspend things that are leading to that polarity. We know what it is by now, and to facilitate a more sober resolution space for yourself. Okay, and to, yes, create infrastructure in your life that is as healthy as it could be given the circumstances. I mean, nothing is guaranteed, right? In this world, with these economies, with these changes, with these movements, it's like there's no guarantee of anything if we're expecting some type of like economic success or something, or if we're expecting, sadly for some people, just to get by even. So that's why I said in the beginning of the video, entrepreneurial spirit can be good, because it has a certain risk and reward factor, and it can also really perceive losses in a kind of like sporty way. So that's very positive, but certainly not in a gambling way. We don't want to be entrepreneurially minded in like the sense I'm going to gamble everything I have on this one product. Nothing like that. But through sober resolution decision making, we can really implement certain ideas like that can really help. And I just feel that there's a lot of luck and there's a lot of support from the universe, from God, from Creator, to get these things right, to get our callings right, to get our steps right, to be in a phase of healthy completion of that which we fell out of before, to build that which we couldn't before, and to do so in a very sober way. Okay? So that's kind of what it's looking like to me over these oncoming months. It's a lot of information, it's a lot to digest, I know. But we really have such a great building opportunity here, and we have a good knowing of how things also exist in a very new feeling world, at least insight into that at this point in time, if we can see things and know things in a clearer way based on a healthier psyche. Okay. So anyway, everyone, if you're new, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. I'll be making a lot of content for the rest of the year about these things and about, navigating these times and these energies. I love to do it. It's just so incredible to be here and talking to you about global dynamics today, not just in the theme of astrology, but with some integrated astrology. And I will say the rest of the content for the rest of the year is going to probably be mostly astrologically based because it's almost time for 2022 year ahead forecasts. And it's going to be eclipse season soon. And I just can't wait to usher in all of these incredible transits with you all. There are live premieres every Friday right now at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. I am also on Patreon if you wanted to support the channel. There's also a join button on YouTube. Both are great ways to support the channel. On Patreon, I do weekly forecasts every Saturday called Tea Chats, and they're only over there. And I do the readings early and ad-free every month. So come and check that out if you get the chance. And otherwise, great luck, everyone. This is kind of just a great time to step up and know what we want and also what we don't, and to step into that evolution process. So have a great time of it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back to it anytime, and I'll link some other great videos below that I think are on this wavelength as well. So check the description box and leave me a comment, hit that like button to get the video out there, and have a great finishing period for 2021. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.